Hey guys, on this video, I want to talk about a concept or a word that gets used in martial arts a lot, and it has a lot of relevance. And this is actually from a conversation I was having with my students last night, and this question came up, and it led into some um, really interesting conclusions and life applications. And I thought this would be a great topic to talk about on this video. So I hope this helps you uh, and provides maybe some direction or some insights that you hadn't thought about. But the word is Sutemi. And Sutemi, you'll see it used a lot in like judo and kendo and stuff, and they'll reference it to being like basically sacrifice. So like a sacrifice throw, or in kendo, the idea of sukemi is this is it's what you have when you're charging into your opponent, swinging your sword. And what it is sukemi is not so much about sacrifice. It has to do more with letting go of the attachment to the result of your action. So, like in the case of kendo, being able to charge in with your attack without fear or hesitancy of whether or not that attack succeeds or fails, or whether or not you're going to get struck in the process. That it's that all-in approach. And I think this is really something that be a fascinating deep dive into our own training in the Bujinkan. We see this word Sutemi used, but really do we understand fully what that means and the significance of it? And what it relates to is this idea of non-attachment. It's a really deep concept, and I'm going to try to keep it as simplistic as I can. Um, but I read online when I was doing some other research. This topic came up, and somebody posted a story. I don't know how true it is, but they said that it originally came from this story. But I like the analogy, and it had to do with the idea of a nut or like an acorn, and that when you and I don't remember the exact nut that they described, but basically if you put it in water, it'll sink. But if you remove the inside, if you release or free the inside, it floats. And because it floats, it stays with the current, with the changes of the current and the flow of everything. It's in the present moment. And I thought this was a really interesting idea. Um, but Sutemi, in more of a direct application, has to do with letting go of your attachment to the outcome, and in the case of martial technique, letting go of your attachment even to your own life. That's why this word sacrifice comes in, because it's the idea that you could very well die based on what you do, especially if it is such an extreme move like throwing your body under an opponent, going forward into the opponent who is armed and ready to receive. This idea that you're going to fully commit to that act without regard of your own life, that's a very powerful thing. And but there's some things I think that also need to be considered when you do this. That Sutemi doesn't mean letting go of life itself. It's not this idea of you're gonna launch this attack and you don't care if it succeeds or not. That's not it. There's a difference between intent and attachment. That you can have the intent to want to execute something, and be fully committed to that, but you're not attached to the outcome, so that if that outcome doesn't happen, you still keep flowing, you still keep moving. But even deeper than that, it has to do with where you're putting your mind. So I know, like, if you ever read the book from Taekwondo Soho, The Unfettered Mind, they talk about the right mind. These are some Buddhist concepts, but it's this idea of wherever you put your mind, that's where your energy goes. And you can become trapped by that. So if your mind is in your sword, then you become trapped by your sword. And you're not in the moment. You're not in the ever changing and shifting circumstances. And so when it comes to Sutemi, to be able to apply Sutemi in your technique, take a look at the original attack. In this case, we'll talk about a Tsuki, right? Or a ski, the punch. the initial punch, and how we see this full body extended expression of this punch, and people balk about that. Why would you do that, etc. But the reason, in my opinion, the reason why this is so foundational to your training to practice this way of punching is, first of all, it's about a thrust. The body motion is for a thrust. So the punch is the weapon, but the delivery is a thrust. And that thrust is done in a very linear, direct motion. But it's more than just the body aspect of it. It's a mind body integration. Your will, your mind, your intent, your heart, everything is all like laser focused in one direction, and it pierces straight forward with 100% commitment. That's that's a really, in my opinion, that is kind of the definition of Sutemi. That you're not you're not throwing this punch at your opponent expecting anything. And that's the important part that I think is so vital in training that gets missed, especially in this uke-tori relationship when it comes to practicing kata. That oftentimes the uke will execute their attack, whether it's a punch or a grab or whatever. They're executing their attack already in the mindset that they're going to receive a response, and they're going to have to take that response, their ukemi, and they're going to be defeated. They're going to fall, lock, whatever, be struck. They're already in that expectation of the outcome. They already know how that outcome is going to be, and so their mind is already in that next step. The punch itself completely dissolves. So that's how you get these horrible jellyfish punches or these floaty, unrealistic strikes that have no power. That if they actually did connect, it would probably do more damage to the guy delivering the punch than it would be the person receiving the punch. But also, you see it in the timing of things that this person throws this punch and they're already reacting to maybe a dakunuke, maybe a ukeuchi or something like the striking to the attacking arm. They're already responding to that. Maybe they're tensing up for that or whatever in preparation to receive that before it even happens. So in their head, they're already ahead of the actual moment, and that's an attachment. They've attached to that moment. And I've seen this even in watching Soke and how he moves and stuff, and how he'll play with that perception that he'll do something and the person flinches or responds to what they think is happening instead of what is actually happening. And that creates this break in balance or this shift in their structure or whatever. And it just opens up this opportunity for something else. But Soke moves in that timing of that something else because he's not attached to that outcome. He's existing in the moment while the uke is attached to an outcome that never actually happened. So I think there's a really, really significant lesson here that we can apply in our training and how this works. Even in our most basic training, our most basic kata is, where is your mindset? Are you attached to an outcome? And when you have your when you're the tori and you have your uke who's launching an attack, is your mindset already attached to what the outcome is supposed to be, instead of paying attention to the actual moment that you're supposed to be doing what it is you're doing? And I see this sometimes as well when people struggle with a technique because they become frustrated because in their mind they're attached to what it's supposed to be, and they're not paying attention to what they're actually doing because in their brain they're thinking, well, this person should be responding this way, but they're not. So they get frustrated and then they don't know, they dump more energy, they're trying to force the technique. But being aware of the present moment and unattaching from that outcome while still having the desire and the commitment towards that outcome is a very significant mental state that I think we could learn from. So, for instance, again, I go back to that initial attack, that punch, that the uke needs to have the intent to actually hit the tori. If they're going to throw a punch at your face and you don't move, that should hit your face. They should not be thinking about anything else except hitting your face. But they're not attached to the hitting of your face, where their mindset is already expecting that. They're not expecting to hit your face, they're just intent on hitting your face. So I hope this isn't getting too heady, but I think you capture what I'm talking about. It's a very significant thing. Because if you have the intent to do something, but you're not attached to whether or not you succeed, you can exist in that present moment and be able to have the adaptiveness to be able to adapt to the shifting and changing circumstances to continue to forward yourself toward that end goal of striking that person in the face. So if that Tori moves a little too soon or a little too late, your body is going to adjust to that and you're going to keep going on your trajectory and strike that person in the face. So, and also if their block is weak, if they have a weak uke, they block that, Jodan uke is weak, your punch is going to go through that. It's going to collapse that. And yeah, of course, we're talking about progressive training. You want to train slowly, but have that intent. That Tori should feel your intent behind that attack, even if it's done micro slow. They should feel that intent. But you're not attached to the outcome. You're not responding to something that hasn't happened yet. Or you're not so attached that when it doesn't happen the way your brain is expecting it to happen, you're not going to go through a moment of shock where you freeze up or your balance is adjusted and stuff just purely off the expectation. So that's just some examples of how this interplay can play out and the significance of Sutemi, this idea of unattachment. But even on a bigger scale, you can apply this in your own life as well, that we create attachments all the time. We expect certain things, and that is the root of anxiety, is that when we have an expectation that something bad is going to happen, even before any action has taken place. Anxiety and attachment are both duality of an expectation. You, whether you're excited about something or you have anxiety about something, reflects your positive or negative expectation of that result. We suffer from a lot of anxiety. And sometimes anxiety or fear is healthy, but for a lot of people, it's very toxic because it causes you to hesitate. It causes you to not commit yourself because you're afraid of an expectation. You're afraid of a result that you don't even know if that's going to happen. You won't know the result until you try, until you go for it. But as long as you have more energy you put towards expecting something negative to happen, you're going to pull energy back. If you're excited about something, you're expecting a positive result. You have an attachment toward a positive result. You're going to commit too much energy to that. You're going to overcommit. So that's that interplay between positive and negative attachment that anxiety or that excitement will cause you to overcommit or undercommit. But if you release that attachment, if you just commit yourself fully to the act and to the goal that you're trying to achieve, but you're not attached to whether or not you succeed in that goal, you have all of this energy to commit, but you're not overcommitting or undercommitting, and you're in the exact split second moment. You are 100% in that split second moment. You are mindful of the present moment. And that, in my opinion, is the highest form of training. When you can do that in a controlled environment in the dojo and do that in your practice, and then you start finding application to do that in the rest of your life, then when you are in real situations, you're going to have that ability to control your center. And I talk about the center a lot, own your center. That's the program that I'm building outside of Bujinkan, outside of my school, a separate program. But this own your center concept, it plays right into it, that you have that center, the center line of your body, your seichusen, but also there's a center of your mind, a center of your heart, a center of your relationships, a center of everything. There's a center. And staying connected to that center means you let go of attachments, of fear and expectation, of results. You let go of all of that and you exist in the moment so that you can fully commit to being in that present moment. So in training, see where this plays out. Am I overcommitting or undercommitting? Is my mind focused on on a result? Am I clinging to that result so much that I'm not aware of what's happening in the present moment? And as uke, I need to make sure that if I'm going to attack, my intent is clear on that attack. I am going to attack and I'm going to do this, but I'm not going to be so fixated on the results of whether or not they receive the attack correct or whatever. I'm not going to be so fixated on it, but my intent is clear that I'm going to do this and I'm going to throw myself into this attack. As Tori, somebody doing the attack on you, you know what your goal is, what you're trying to achieve, but you're not going to be so attached to it that you're missing the present moment that you need to take in order to affect the present situation, to steer it in that direction that you want it to go. So I hope this makes sense. I hope it's helpful to you. It's an interesting concept. There's a lot more to this. And I don't want to get too far out and sound guru-ish and everything, but there is a real life application to this. The process of letting go is a huge part of learning to free yourself. And there's a lot of great stuff out there about learning how to let go of things and to allow yourself to become lighter. Um, and that's something that you can explore. The purpose of this video is to more specifically relate it to our Bujinkan training. And I think that maybe you might capture some new perspectives next time you're in training with somebody, that you can start to experiment with some of this. Train slow, but train mindfully and just be aware. The first part is awareness. Be aware. Where is my mind going? And that awareness is important. So start with the awareness and then look at what you have to release. Just like releasing tension in your body. This is something else last night when I was working with a new student and how much extra tension he was holding in his body to just do a basic move. And when I started telling him, you can relax this part, he was still able to hold the correct structure, but everything around that correct structure, he was able to release that energy and relax and basically allow the form of the structure to hold shape while everything else around it let go of that energy. So he wasn't struggling as much. And that's a fantastic physical analogy of this type of concept of letting go, but still staying true to your goal, to your commitment. Um, so again, I hope this is helpful. Thank you for all the support. I'm still loving all the comments that I'm getting, and I get messages from people. It's fantastic. These are conversations I think that we should be having. These are healthy. These are the kinds of questions that are important. That in your pursuit, your martial training, you need to take these deep dives and really explore these things, and then put them into physical application. We don't want to spend so much time in our heads that we're away from our bodies. So you need to make sure that you balance it with good, effective training. But at the same time, don't just be robots. Actually have a mind for yourself and really kind of look at these things and ask these questions and explore these answers. Again, no attachment to an outcome. You're on a journey. So embrace that journey. So again, thank you so much. And as I always say, stay happy, stay healthy, and no matter what, keep training.